So for this first weekend in October, I thought I'd take a look back at the plants I brought in during the month of September. There are several instances of, oh, I need one of those, and a couple instances of, oh, if at first you don't succeed, and then some other interesting developments, so I wanted to share those with you too. So join me with a tasty beverage of your choice close to hand while we take a look at a small haul plus. And before we get underway, I want to thank those of you who took the time and the trouble to post what's on your never again list. You guys made me laugh out loud. And the jury seems to be no more alocasias or peperomias for anybody. Nobody wants to see those anymore. There were a couple other things that I had forgotten about. Marantas, number one. And you guys just made me laugh. So thank you very much, everybody who posted a reply. Yeah, it was good for my soul too. So, all right, now the kids are all waiting and lined up for you over here. So let's get started with the first plant. And the first one up today is this Hoya Cari NS13064. Now, Hoya Cari is native to Papua New Guinea, the Oro province, and was found in an elevation of about 4,500 feet. It was collected in 1935 and 1936 by C.E. Carr, and that's who it was named after. And it was published again in 2017 in Gardens Bulletin by Paul Irwin Forrest and David J. Little. And then this particular clone was published by Natalie Simonson and Michaela Rhode. And those of you who have been watching the channel for a while are saying to yourselves, no, you already showed us one of those. This can't be a new plant. And this is the lovely plant I showed you before. Notice the delicate ombre effect on the leaves. And it's compact and diminutive size. Yeah, I don't know. I have a feeling I moved it to pond before the root structure was strong enough to really handle that move well. It was it was like, oh, doesn't it look nice in that little pot? And watch it die. Literally days. So I really want to try and grow this plant. So, like Henry VIII with his third wife didn't work out well either. Before the body was even cold, I was out ordering another one, and this is it. I can't tell you what it is about those leaves. They just, for me, gotta navigate lights and microphones and everything else. They just are very, very intriguing. So this one was transferred. It arrived in a similar mix. I think it was pumice, and it seems to have survived its transfer, although one of these OG leaves has a little bit of yellowing on the tip. Please don't die, please don't die. But it's putting out new growth and new leaves, so we're okay. I'm also putting it in lower light. I don't know whether there's any scientific basis to what I am about to say, but I'm finding it true that the less amount of variegation and the darker the leaves, the lower the light it wants. I don't know if that's true. I am finding that the more variegation, the more light it wants. So I'm kind of like thinking that the reverse is true. It's working with a couple of my plants that I had them under bright lights and they did okay, but when I moved them to slightly lower light, I've talked about the fallout from my plant shelves. When I move them into the fallout, they seem to be doing better. So that's where I've got this one. Please don't die. It's really, really cool. This one came from Hoya Treasures on Etsy. keep your fingers crossed for me because I really like this plant, and this may be the third one I bought. Granted, the other two were like cuttings, but let's make this one live. This is Hoya Cari NS13064. And the next one up is this Hoya McGil. Hoya McGil is native to North Queensland, Australia. It was first published in 1914 in the Queensland Agricultural Journal by Frederick Manson Bailey. I was afraid of this plant for a little bit because I wasn't quite sure of how it's going to grow. And then I just gave up and stopped worrying about it because the blossoms are huge. They can be up to around 3 inches across. Gorgeous purple magenta color. And I have the cross of this, Hoya Kaimuki, which is a cross between this and Hoya Archboldiana, which is also known for big blossoms. So I kind of had a what the heck kind of moment, and decided to give it a try. The leaves are neat enough, interesting enough. Nothing, nobody grows this for the leaves. It's for the blossoms. So it traveled really well. It settled in really well. It looks like a thin-leafed Hoya, but they're a little firmer. There's a little bit of damage here in shipping, but that's, if you've ordered plants online, stuff happens. But they're firmer than you would expect. I'm concerned that this is going to turn into another monster like my multiflora, but I'm prepared to live with those consequences for the blossoms. I just want to see it bloom. So it seems to have made its transition to pon okay without any problems, really. I mean, nobody looks any the worse for wear. We're all good here. So this one came from Gabriella Plants, and this is Hoya McGil. The next kit up is this Hoya rigidifolia. Now, Hoya rigidifolia is native to Sumatra, to Western Sumatra in particular, and the Mentawai Islands and Siberut Island in particular. It was first collected in 2016 and published in 2019 in the European Journal of Taxonomy by Sri Rahayu and Michaela Rhode. I used to have one of these. The leaves are just amazing, and it's really difficult to tell on this. Maybe this one leaf can do it. There's the main rib, and then there's another vein that runs parallel to the edges. It's very, very unique. And I used to have one of these. And it got promoted to compost this summer. I had it in a smaller pot, and it had turned into a rather large plant, and I didn't up-pot it in time. This is my take on the situation. And there was not enough moisture in the reservoir to support the foliar growth above it, and it just dried out in the heat we had. We had that 3-week period of unseasonable heat here in Rhode Island. So I went online. I wanted another one because I think it's a very pretty plant. So I went online and found one, and the price looked good, and it looked, okay, like all that worked. So I ordered it, and it came, and it looked really nice. and within 3 days of showing up, it started developing these large black spots. So that's not from here. So immediately, as soon as I saw that, it's like, this is not good, this is not right. I took cuttings, I took the best parts that looked the healthiest and looked had the highest chance of surviving, and started to root them. And I see some roots, that's what I was looking at earlier. I see some roots starting to form, which is very cool, because I do want this plant to thrive again. The seller was really great. They refunded the entire price of the plant, which was very cool. And I do appreciate that. I'm not going to mention them because I don't want to cause them any grief, because they were really good about dealing with it. But I don't want to cast them in a bad light. I'm sure they didn't deliberately sell. I've dealt with this company before. I'm sure they didn't deliberately sell a diseased or damaged plant. So yeah, but and I would consider ordering them from them again because of the way in which they handled this. So anyway, this is Hoya rugidifolia. It's very cool. I got 2 cuttings in here. Keep your fingers crossed for me. Yeah. Keep me in your thoughts. This is Hoya rugidifolia. And the next kit up is this Hoya RUIER UT 168. Now, Hoya RUIER was first discovered in Borneo, the province of Sabah only, in Lahad Datu district on Buturong Hill. It was collected in 2000 and published in 2015 in Phyto Keys by Michaela Rhode. But this particular clone was collected by Yutai Trisukon, who's a Thai collector. And this plant is rather interesting. There's a little bit of splash on the leaves. They're nice lancelet leaves, nothing to rave about. Pretty enough. They're a little light, a little pale, which seems to be the norm for RUIER. By the way, it was named for Dr. Ruth Q, who was a noted botanist working in that area. And it's known, people buy it for the blossoms. The leaves are pretty enough, but it's for the blossoms. This showed up in a very barky mix. And when I decided to try and move it from that to my normal mix, I was going to move it to pon. A fairly fine root system that was so embedded in that bark, when I started trying to do it, I was like, no, I'm just going to leave this in bark. So I moved it again to a self-watering pot in a mix of cocoa husk chunks and tree fern fiber and some fine bark, some pumice chunks, my standard mix. And so far it has settled in. The leaves all feel good. Settled in, doing fairly well. It's only been here a week or two, so no new growth or anything yet. But we're excited about this. This could be kind of fun. I have a feeling this could turn into a really big plant. So I've just prepared for that, which is something I do now. I used to start with small, tiny pots and then move them up and move them up and move them up. And anymore with self-watering, and I use almost exclusively self-watering pots for my Hoyas. I don't worry about that. I'll put it into a 4-inch, 5-inch pot right away because the wick is going to draw up as much as the plant needs. And I haven't had too many problems with overwatering or anything. So anyway, looking forward to this one. This is Hoya RUIER UT 168, and it came from Gardino Nursery. continuing on, this is Hoya species Coang Island, IML 1508. Now, this is oddly enough from Coang Island in Thailand and was discovered or collected by David and Iris Marie Little. And if you've seen that IML accession number on other plants, it stands for Iris Marie Little. And that was David's spouse. What I've come to understand is that she was the one that kept all the records and took notes on everything. And she just started using her own initials. There you will find a few that have his initials as part of the accession number, but most of them have her initials because she's the one, I guess, who kept things straight. They were big collectors. They ran a nursery in Australia, Little Nursery, Liddle, and her contributions are phenomenal. I saw a picture of this on the site, and it said it got kind of big leaves, which, you know, I keep saying I'm not going to do that anymore. And then I see a picture of a leaf, and it's like, okay. The pictures I saw of the blossoms were also really interesting. There's a little bit of splash. They're fairly glabrous. I don't feel any pubescence. Yeah, I'm grow. There seems to be, maybe, I was gonna say a new growth point down in here, which would be very nice at the base of this vine. I have no expectations for this vine. You know, sometimes they make it, sometimes they don't. But this, it's like the original leaf down here. This is rigid. It's rigid like a Finlaysonii Callistophylla type, but thicker. So I'm not anxious, I'm curious to see what's gonna come of this. Grown it for the blossoms, we'll see what happens. But this is Hoya species Coang Island IML 1508. Next three plants, they were all on my wish list, and I happened to find them from the same source, and they were all cuttings, so they're tiny. Still got some packing fluff in them. So the first one up is Hoya Pelata, and Hoya Pelata is from Borneo, the Kalimantan district, or province, county, North Kalimantan, Nunukan. It was first collected in 1953 and published in 2022 by Michaela Rhode and Sri Rahayu. This is, I'm sorry, I'm picking out still more. This is a tiny little cutting. And with luck, it will focus. It's put out some new rootage. And I'm very, very excited about this. It's there's a bunch of new roots. I'm trying to keep them in a humid environment, but not so humid that it gets moldy. This one has tiny little round leaves. There's, I don't know if, let's see if I can, I'll put some close-ups in here. There's a little bit of veins. Whoop, that's what I was worried about. A few veins in the leaf that you can see, which is very nice. And, you know, for all my whining about big leafed Hoyas, I got some small leafed Hoyas. So, yeah, this is Hoya Pelata. next one up is Hoya pirifolia. Hoya pirifolia is from Yunnan province in China, from the Yingjiang Xian district. And it was first collected in 2019 and published in 2021 in Phyto Keys by Feng Wang. And when I saw this one online, I wanted one. It's tiny leaves, very tiny leaves. And I don't know that they get much larger than this. I mean, I'm sure they do and they will, but I mean, that's like, you know, that's what it's going to look like. So this one will test my my skills a little bit. It looks healthy. It traveled well. It started to put out a few little roots. Yeah, this could be really, really interesting, or it could go south somewhat quickly. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. This is going to be kind of a neat experiment. This is Hoya pirifolia. The next little buddy up today is Hoya Boisei. Now, Hoya Boisei is native to Brunei, to the Belait district, Bukit Batu Patam. And I don't speak Malaysian, as I've warned you all. It was first collected in 1989 and published in 2022 in Gardens Bulletin by Michaela Rhode and Sri Rahayu. Those guys are busy, aren't they? This is... get that to focus. A tiny little round-leafed Hoya. And when I first saw pictures of it, it was one of the, you know, all three of these little Hoyas have been like, oh, I need one of those. Beautiful dark green color. It looks like they're I was going to say there's a new growth point activating. I'm probably just being delusional. There's some healthy roots. It's growing in a nice little barky mix. So we're keeping all three of these in the magic cookie jar. When I was researching these, all three of these, what was really interesting is you can tell from the research notes, you can tell that they're modern discoveries. In some of the older herbarium entries, there'll just be a note like Singapore or Borneo. With these, there were map coordinates. So, you know, clearly they had GPS tracking and everything else. And, you know, as I said, the descriptions were, in this case of this one, Belait District, Bukit Batu Patam, lower slopes near Sungai Inye River. Sungai means river, at a height of 70 meters. And there were map coordinates with it, which is very cool. It's kind of neat. Should I ever happen to go there, I would know exactly where to find this plant. But that's very neat. So all three of these, the Pelata, the pirifolia, and this Boisei, all came from Planting with Wine on Etsy. Now this next one's not new, but I was so happy with what it did for me this week. This is my Hoya Denise Freda, and this week, Freda bloomed. And I am thrilled. I mean, that's just, there's more starting to open up here. Freda and I struggled for a little bit in the early stages of our relationship. I thought it was beautiful the first time I saw it. The variegation is just amazing. And while I loved it, it did not seem to love me back. And we struggled. It was not pretty. And then I realized that while there is some variegation in the leaves, there's also a bit of dark. And I've heard somebody mention that they prefer a slightly lower light. So I moved it from under the grow light to the fallout, and oh my goodness, girls started putting out. That was unkind. But anyway, the leaves got a little bit darker. The variegation got a little bit more pronounced because of the contrast, darker leaves and the variegation. She put out peduncles. There's one, the one that's in bloom, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 active peduncles on this. These 3 are budding up. 5 peduncles. Yeah, moving it to lower light was a huge win. The blossoms, I'm sure, I mean, if I haven't yet, put some pictures, future me, put some pictures over here, some close-ups. They're just, and I'm not a big pink flower fan, but man, these are really, really pretty. So yeah, I wanted to share that with y'all because I'm really pleased about this. This is Hoya Denise Freda, and let me check my notes to see if there's an accession number. I didn't even tell you about her. I was so excited. Hoya Denise Freda is native to the Solomon Islands, the South Solomons. It was first published in 1993 in Australia by Paul Irwin Forrest and David J. Little. I told you that little guy was busy. This is really, really neat. The Freda variety, I believe, was found at a later date, but it's really cool, very pretty. I'm just happy about it. This came from Rare Herbs Garden NJ, and oh yeah, I'm just like, if you can't tell, I'm really excited about this. This is Hoya Denise Freda. A few months ago, you may remember that I showed off my Stephania erecta, and we all made the jokes because everybody wants an erecta. And I'd never had one before. I didn't know anything about it, but you know, when you see a plant with a name like that, you need one. Stephania erecta is native to Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, and it was first published in 1910 in Das Pflanzenreich by Friedrich Ludwig Emil Diels. And I have to say, this has just exceeded my expectations. I think it's really cool. The leaves remind me of nasturtiums. They've been growing larger and larger. I wish I had addressed a better trellis situation when I first got it. But between the red vines and these neat leaves, it grows in, let's see if I can show this, in a caudex, which is sometimes referred to as the potato. This is not the first one. The first one I tried was just the potato. It had no growth on it. And we parted ways rather tragically. So the second time I wanted to try it with some growth, so that's what I ordered. I got the potato with some vines on it. Oh my goodness, this has been so much fun. It doesn't want any direct sun. It does want decent light. You don't water it until the soil is dry because the caudex holds a decent amount of moisture. So it's easy to overwater it. So I just wait until it's dry. You know, stick your finger in it. Is it dry? Okay, give it a drink. And it's the mix it came in. So it looks like cocoa coir and perlite. There's some other, maybe some tree fern or something kind of grainy in there. But this has just been fun. I don't know what's going to happen to it this winter. I mean, it's coming inside. I'm not going to leave it outdoors. I'm not sure if it will die back a bit. I've heard that they can sometimes do that, and then they'll come back again in the spring. But those leaves are just neato. I mean, the whole thing is just kind of cool. As I said, I wish I had known it was going to do well. I would have come up with a better trellis or a more secure trellis, but this one's been cool. Every couple of days I turn it so it alternates back and forth between the light and, phototropism. Those leaves turn to face the sun, but they're very pretty, very neat. If you want something different, it's Stephania erecta. This one came from Sky Garden by Phoenix on Etsy. The last little update is regarding my lithops. Now, some of you may remember I talked about them earlier. They're a succulent. Lithops are from Botswana, the Cape Provinces, the Free State, Namibia, and the Northern Provinces. The genus was first published in 1922 in Gardener's Chronicle by Nicholas Edward Brown. And I just bought them. They came in a pack of, I think, 10 or 11. They looked interesting, and I thought I would give them a try. And the first one of them bloomed this week, which is very neat. They're sometimes called living stone plants, but I usually hate nicknames like that. They have been so much fun. They're all, I think there were only 2 casualties out of the 11. And they have done really well. So you water them. I mean, I have these in pond, small pots with drainage holes. You water them occasionally. They are succulents. And then at a certain point in their growth cycle, the old original leaves start to die off and retract. And when you see that starting to happen, when you see them pull apart, then you stop watering. And the new leaves that grow inside draw all their moisture from the older leaves, and then the older leaves just wither away and die off. And then the new leaves shoot out. These have been really, really cool. And I was thrilled with my first blossom. They're very pretty. There are a whole bunch of different species, and I haven't gotten into this genus enough to be able to identify all of them for you. They're funky. They're kind of cool. They want a lot of sun. They don't want to be overwatered. They're succulents, but they're kind of neat. And if you're looking for something, I mean, these have been in these pots for, I don't see any roots coming out the bottom, for a year. They're usually really inexpensive. There's lots of different colors. These are lithops. And I want to thank you for spending a little bit of time with me this week's end. This week's question for the comment section is the opposite of last week's. Last week's was the never again. What is your other plant? The other one that grows for you? Hoyas and I get along really, really well. My other one is Ripsalis. I love Ripsalis. I've got quite a few, well, I've got a bunch. They're epiphytes, so we get along fairly well. I seem to do well with epiphytes. Maybe that's because I occasionally neglect them. I don't know. But in the comment section below, tell me what is your other plant. And I want to thank you again for spending some time with me this week's end. Please remember to like, follow, and subscribe. It's really important to my channel. A lot of the products you see me use are available through my Amazon storefront. I get a small commission on the sales, but it doesn't affect your price at all. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click on the link below to my Buy Me a Coffee page, or there's a button down here with 3 dots on it, and there's supposed to be a thanks button there. You can click on that. I'm going to post links to a couple more videos over on this side as I usually do, and enjoy the rest of your week's end.